kind of do a summary so everyone hears the same piece. So doing it again. As Joe just said, if you could kind of hold questions so that then I can try and take as many of those as we get to them, but let me try and set the scene a little bit for Peak Cluster. Okay, I will try and shout. Apologies, my voice is beginning to give, having been talking for the last few hours. Okay, so Peak Cluster, first and foremost, as a country, for the last several decades, we have gradually produced less and less stuff. Whether it's steel or vehicles or whatever, gradually we have lost our industry, lost our jobs that go with those. Personally, I don't find that great. I've spent my career in industry and I've hated to see that decline. Okay? So one of the things that I'm driven about is how can we help ensure that we carry on making things here in the UK rather than being reliant. Rather than being reliant on importing everything that we need. And, you know, goodness me, this last week has shown us that being vulnerable to certain other countries is maybe not quite all we expected. So that's kind of like the first bit of framing. And then the second framing is when we make stuff, I think we all know that we need to reduce our impact on the environment. So I'm particularly talking about production of cement and lime. Cement, most of you will be familiar with, the key ingredient for concrete, for building stuff. Whether it's schools and hospitals, whether it's office buildings, whether it's tunnels and bridges, whether it's the energy system. Excuse me. Okay. Vital material. In fact, concrete is the most widely used human-made material on the planet. Cement is the key ingredient of that. Lime, people are probably less familiar with, actually goes into a broad range of applications from agriculture to manufacturing processes to environmental protection, a broad range of things. In many ways quite similar. Limestone is quarried out of the ground, processed in a large plant to make cement or lime. Okay, and in Derbyshire and Staffordshire, we produce about 40% of the UK's cement and lime. And that's an industry that's really seen that decline that I talked about. So as a country, over the last 20 years, we've gone from importing 10% of our cement to 32% of our cement, a third of it, roughly. Yeah, and that's come with more reliance on imports. It's come with a reduction in manufacturing in the UK. Yeah, and I said, I don't think that's a good trend to be on. And in fact, just in the last 12 months, 2 new cement import terminals have been announced in this country, one in Liverpool, one in Bristol. Yeah, so I think we should be looking to help keep our industry here in the UK, make stuff that we need for building and for other uses, and keep those jobs there, help our economy. But we also need to do it in a way that reduces our impact on the environment. Producing cement and lime generates a lot of carbon dioxide. Most of it comes from the raw material, about 2/3 from the limestone, about 1/3 comes from the fuel that's used to heat the process. So if we're going to have an industry that is producing less carbon dioxide but is producing the materials that we want, we need to do something, and that something is a technology called carbon capture and storage. So we need to capture the carbon dioxide to stop it going into the atmosphere, and we need to lock it away so it doesn't go into the atmosphere. So we're going to capture it at the manufacturing sites, and we're going to store it in a suitable place. Well, where can you store CO2 at very large volumes? The place to do it is the place that has stored natural gas for millions of years until we as humans came along and took that natural gas out. What did we do? We took the natural gas out of those what are called geological structures, that rock deep below the seabed. We brought it ashore, we moved it in pipes to our homes, and we've all had that benefit for many, many years. Nice warm homes using that natural gas that we've taken out of the ground. Those reservoirs where the natural gas was, those geological structures as I called it, have proven that they can store natural gas over millions of years, so therefore they can store are captured carbon dioxide. Okay, so now I've kind of explained carbon capture and storage. So capture the carbon dioxide at the manufacturing site, store it deep below the East Irish Sea in the Morecambe gas fields, which will be emptied, depleted by the end of this decade. We need to get the CO2 from one to the other, from where it's captured to where it's stored, and that's why we're proposing a pipeline to safely and efficiently transport that carbon dioxide from where it's captured to where it's stored. Okay, and so then we considered, well, where should that pipeline routing go? And we've looked at what are all of the different constraints about where you could take a pipeline offshore, all of the different environmental designations of the land that it would need to run through, clearly existing built-up areas, existing infrastructure, all of those pieces. And we live in a very busy country with not that many places. A lot of it is already very developed. So out of that has come our recommended route for the pipeline. And if you look on the materials that we've got around the room and on our website, what you'll see there is a proposed pipeline corridor. And that's typically about 300 metres wide. That does not mean that we're proposing to build something 300 metres wide. What we're saying is that's the area within which we think it would be feasible to build a pipeline, and we are looking for feedback on that routing and where within that corridor we think it should go. Okay, so ultimately what we will actually need for construction will be a much smaller part of that for the pipeline. The majority of it will be built what's called trenched, so through open land, dig a trench, put the pipeline in, refill it and return it to previous use. And there's a diagram on one of the banners over there describing that, exactly the same way you would build a water pipe or a gas pipe.
How big is this pipe, if you don't mind me asking?
So we're going through the engineering work at the moment. We anticipate that the pipeline itself will be about 36-inch diameter. Okay, so we're not building the Mersey Tunnel here, right? This is like a gas pipe, like a large gas pipe.
How deep is it buried?
So we're doing the same as the gas networks would do, which, whereas my engineering colleague James will correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 1.2 metres to the top of the pipe. So that's typical for a gas pipe. Yeah. Okay. James, if I've stated the number wrong, tell me. So that's why we think we need a pipeline. That's why we've recommended a particular routing. We've done lots of studies on the ecology and the physical constraints to try and identify what we think is the most suitable corridor. The process that we're in now is what's called a phase 1 consultation. So we are asking for feedback. Okay. So let me be really clear, because we've had this question several times. Have decisions already been taken? The answer is no. We're at the stage of asking for feedback to help inform our design. There will then be a second consultation later on this year. So we will have refined what we're proposing based on the feedback on ongoing engineering work, as well as feedback from all of the statutory bodies, the local authorities, Natural England, Environment Agency, all of those kind of people. And that will help us then refine down to a further proposal, which we will come back and consult on again. And then off the back of that,
the proposal is for the Wirral. The second proposal is just about the route. Is that right?
So this proposal is about the whole pipeline from the Peak District to the end of the Wirral. Yeah.
But the second one isn't going to be not the Wirral.
Correct.
So it's a done deal. But it's the Wirral.
That we're recommending that, yes.
No one's asking.
And then, well, no. We are asking you.
You're saying it's a done deal.
That we think it's the right solution. Clearly, your opportunity here is to give feedback to us, which we will. Yeah.
So there's no alternatives to the Wirral. That's not consultation.
So there's lots of people want to ask questions. So absolutely in this process, please, if you have alternative, this is absolutely your right, and we want you to give those alternatives. Please tell us. Now, if
Wait a
you
minute.
just let me.
Sorry. If you keep going on about you want feedback, our feedback, how to improve your design and your pipeline and everything, right? That's what you said. Now, it's not our job to give you feedback about how to improve things or give you alternatives. Our job is to say, these are our concerns. When you came in here and you mentioned the word consultation, what does consultation look like to you? What I feel like is we're being here and we're being talked at. That's what I feel like. What I feel like is you're here and you're putting on a sale and you're going like, okay, this is rosy, like rose tinted glasses, and this is how we do it. Now, we haven't heard the proposal. We haven't heard the proposal. We haven't heard the plan. Environmental impact assessment is less than basic, right? And you're telling us that you want feedback. The feedback that you had all day today is that this is farcical. This is not a consultation. That's the feedback. When you go back to your company, what are you going to tell them?
So respectfully, I'm going to disagree. Yeah?
You can exactly what you want.
Okay.
All in favour? All against?
All again.
Please let me respond. Okay. So clearly, when we bring something forward, we're making a recommendation. Yeah. If we weren't suggesting something, we just said we think there should be a pipeline somewhere, nobody could give any comments, right? Because there wouldn't be any detail. So therefore, we brought a recommendation based on the assessment that we've done of where it is feasible to build a pipeline in a busy country with lots of existing infrastructure in sensitive areas. So therefore, we're bringing a proposal. If there are disagreements with that, we want to hear those. We want people to give their feedback. That is consultation. Off the back of that, then with all the feedback that we get from other bodies, as well as landowners and everyone else, then we can see if it is appropriate to change things. To the question of alternative routes, and if somebody suggests an alternative route, we'd be delighted to hear. Then, just let me.
Who is that somebody? You keep saying that. You said somebody suggested an alternative route. Who is that somebody? What is your role in that?
So we have already considered all of those alternative routes. That's why we can recommend one. Okay. If somebody says we think you are wrong, then any of we think you're wrong.
What was the basis?
I can't. If everyone's
No information.
if everyone's calling out, clearly I'm not able to speak so that people can hear me.
Can you outline the risks, please, John?
Sorry? Oh, thank you.
John, can you please outline the risks, because there's plenty of people in this room who have gone round and explained the risks, and they're horrifying. Can you please outline the risks and let other people stand up and tell others what the risks are, because you know.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm really understanding what you're asking.
Well, there's plenty of risks associated with this. Can you tell us what you think the risks are? And let's hear from people in this room who understand the risks. There's Colin over there, there's Mark.
You've seen
Could we
risks in
discuss
America.
that?
You've seen risks in America.
So
What's the health risks for residents here?
If everybody keeps talking, no one's ever going to be heard, because you're all talking over each other, so no one's voice is going to be heard. So let him speak, and let everyone here who wants to say something say it one at a time, because everyone's talking over each other.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. Look, I get that everyone has a lot of questions. Okay, I fully understand that. Okay, and I will try and answer as many questions as I can. Again, what we are talking about here is a buried pipeline. This is a pipeline under the ground, just like the gas that comes to your home, the water that comes to your home. Okay, it is not different from that, and the many other pipelines that run across the country. Right? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I've been talking a lot this afternoon. So the pipeline will be constructed, and then the land will be returned to its previous use, other than where we have above ground installations, which we need a few along the pipeline so that we can do regular inspections of the pipeline to ensure its integrity whilst it's in operation in the future. Okay? The pipeline design is based on this country's many, many years of experience of operating 27,000 kilometres of high pressure pipelines across the country. So this is not something that as a country we're not familiar with. As a country, we are very familiar with high pressure pipelines, all under our feet, and many of us are probably not aware of just how many there are. This is another pipeline. Let me bring it back to the why. Okay? If we want as a country to continue to make stuff, and we want to do it in a way...
No, leave the question.
Generally, let me just finish this point, and then I will try and take some questions. If we want to be able to have an economy and have people in jobs, we need to do something that also allows us to not be damaging our environment in the same way. Okay? That means we have to build some stuff. I fully understand that building stuff, infrastructure, pipelines, comes with some disruption during the construction. But again, we're talking about a buried pipeline here. Once it's there, it doesn't change what the land is used for. It isn't noticeable. Okay. Let me take the question from the lady over there. Sorry.
What are the health risks for residents?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What are the health risks for residents?
It's a buried pipeline.
John, it's not, is it?
Above ground,
Above ground.
It's a steel pipeline in the ground. I'm not sure. I think there's a few other people have been waiting quite a while. There's a lady at the...
Excuse me, you've not answered the question. Okay, it's a buried pipeline. You go on about a lot of mistruths, so its impact on net zero, it's not proven. You've gone on about a buried pipeline and the UK history of pipeline. It's not like a plastic gas pipe, it's different pressures. There's been no leakage in the UK for carbon capture. I acknowledge that. But in America, there's been a high volume of leakage. Now, carbon, when it's exposed, displaces oxygen. Okay, and from that, it then causes health risks. Now, you're talking about a lot of mistruths here, and that's wrong. So there's been other people saying, we need to be quiet and let you speak. I get that, but what I find really offensive is your mistruths.
Yeah.
Sorry, with great respect, I have not said anything.
Yes, you have. You quoted carbon capture and the impact on net zero, mistruth. You've quoted the pipeline as being safe, mistruth, because if there is a leakage in that pipeline, that is damaging to health. Okay? That is also a mistruth. So, respectfully, again, a mistruth.
So, okay,
I'm
so
saying that I understand.
Can you tell me how carbon dioxide damages your health?
It displaces oxygen.
so
Could you
sorry, can I just answer this? Can I just answer this question first? Because this
You haven't mentioned the plan.
Before you do, can I one more question? The company
can
that's
everyone
behind
just-
this, how much experience do they have in this technology?
Okay, so can I try and take the questions one at a time? So first of all, you said it was a mistruth around net zero.
Correct.
So if you're of the opinion that carbon dioxide concentration increasing in the atmosphere is not behind the climate change that we're seeing, we're probably going to have to disagree on that. I will accept the scientific evidence that says that it does and that we need to be reducing.
I work also in the industry. So
But you accuse me of a mistruth.
I do, yeah.
Okay, so that means the vast majority of the scientific establishment, UK government policy is a mystery.
Don't go there, because I've been part of that UK policy.
Okay.
So carbon capture, you're separating two things. You've got carbon capture and you've got carbon in the atmosphere. Okay, so carbon capture is where you're taking it out and you're burying it. So not that different from spent uranium, really. You know, you're taking it and you're burying it and you're leaving it for someone in the future to deal with it. Is that what we're doing? We're putting a pipeline in, we're moving it from point A to point B, we're digging a big hole, there's already a hole there, as you've quite rightly said, apologies, my mistake, and you're sticking it in a hole. That's what they do with spent uranium, isn't it? And leave it for someone in the future to deal with.
So if we don't do anything, the carbon dioxide will go in the atmosphere. Okay, I think it's better for it not to be in the atmosphere, that it is locked away so that it is not causing climate change.
We buy things from China.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a question.
Sorry, I think there was
On the technology,
sorry, the lady at the back was waving her hand for a very long time.
You've mentioned jobs and you've mentioned the pipeline. Pipeline sounds very nice because it's buried underground, but that's actually not what you're doing here, is it? Because we've got an above ground installation.
Here.
So how big is that in kind of football
And where is it?
pitches? How high is it going to be seen off the coastal path? Number two, how many jobs is that going to create on the Wirral?
Sure, okay.
And is it one or is it two?
Can I try and say? So I'm just trying to see if one of my colleagues who can maybe do a better job of answering the footprint. So I just want to make sure I'm providing accurate information. So is one of my colleagues here? Jim, are you able to answer the question? The question was the size of the AGI.
So the size of the AGI, that's dependent on the you don't know.
Speak up, please. Can't be heard.
I don't know, basically. I think it's between 5,000 square metres and 50.
We can't hear.
Between 5,000 and 50,000 square metres.
That's huge.
Wow.
So it's 100 metres by 100 metres.
Wow. 2 or 3 football pitches.
Is that the site or the building?
So, again, it depends on the design. It depends, you know, on the
It's a long way off, isn't it? Don't know.
Typical must have an idea of the typical
it could be relatively small.
How many?
But it depends. We don't
Haven't got a 7-story house.
Say done now. Say done.
How many 7-story houses have you seen?
Okay, again, please.
You must be able to. Yeah.
Okay, everybody, nobody can hear if everyone is calling out, and everyone wants to be able to hear.
Needs to speak up.
Those
Can I
answers.
just say, you never answered my question from before with regards to the experience.
Apologies,
of the
that
company in
wasn't
place.
intentional. Sorry, the second piece remind me, because apologies.
Yeah, I asked you, the company behind this, what is their experience? Because my understanding is it's a newly formed company and it has no experience.
Yeah, so Peak Cluster Limited, fully agree, it's a newly formed company specifically formed to develop the pipeline. That's fairly normal when you're developing new infrastructure that you form a special purpose company.
SPV.
Yeah, it's an SPV, special purpose vehicle. That's entirely normal for that kind of development. Okay, so for the development of the pipeline, most of the members of the team, like myself, we work for a project development company called Progressive Energy. We've been developing carbon capture and storage projects for the last 27 years. Okay, so we have a lot of experience in this space. So we've been around a long time. The other investors into the project are the cement and lime producers because they want the project to happen. They're developing with technology licensors their carbon capture facilities. And then for the pipeline, we have hired experts in the field for engineering, for the environmental impact assessment, and all of the other elements that go along with developing the pipeline. So we bring in expertise to enable us to do that, to get to the point where we have a design and a consent for the pipeline. So apologies for not answering that question. I think the lady in the green coat has been waiting a while.
It's a technical question, and I want to order it back into you. Has anybody estimated what the actual carbon footprint of this thing is going to be?
Yes. Absolutely. So the question, if everyone didn't hear it, was the carbon footprint of the
pipeline and all
the absolutely. Yep. Yeah. So we looked at the carbon involved in building the carbon capture facilities, the pipeline, to understand, are we actually reducing overall carbon? Yeah, because there's no point creating more carbon there. So the way that we looked at that was the amount of carbon involved in building the equipment, but also in operating it for 25 years. Yeah, and so if you take into account all of that embedded carbon, we get what we call a carbon payback. So how quickly is that carbon that you've added by doing that compared to the benefit? And the answer is about 5 months. So actually the embodied carbon that's involved in the stuff we're going to build is pretty small compared to the benefit by reducing the carbon dioxide emissions from the cement and lime production, which, as a reminder, is about 3 million tonnes a year. Okay, I think that lady there was been waiting for a while.
Sorry, can you explain to me why the Wirral has been selected for this?
Yep.
And the Wirral is often described as a leisure peninsula. We are very small. We have a 35-mile coastline. That's it. We are 7 miles across and 15 miles long. Why are we going to bring this to the Wirral? And what other areas were considered for this pipeline?
Yep.
And why does it have to be the Wirral?
Yep. No, that's an entirely right and correct question. And the process that we went through. So again, go back to the three components of the project, if you like. So you've got the carbon capture in Derbyshire and Staffordshire, you've got the store in the East Irish Sea, and then you've got the pipeline.
Is that Morecambe, by the way?
Yes, Morecambe. Yeah, sorry, Morecambe Net Zero.
Down to the Wirral along and take it back up to Morecambe.
Yeah, so it's the Morecambe gas reservoir. Yeah. So there's really kind of two things involved in determining where should the pipeline go. So one of those is, where are there places along the coast where a pipeline can go offshore, and that's driven by many things. Clearly where there's existing housing, you can't do that. There's a lot of land and topography along the coastline that wouldn't be possible to build a pipeline, both close to the shore, but then particularly once you get offshore. Sorry, just
you're going through a Ramsar site. You should know what that is.
Yes.
You're proposing to do it.
Yep.
And you're going through it.
So again,
yes,
absolutely. But again, that's the kind of example where if you've got particular specialist comments or whatever, feel free to put those in. But please.
The route going through. But the Wirral had to put up with the cables coming from Scotland, the Western Link going through. They said the trenches will be open for 2 weeks. They were open for nearly a year. And this is feedback. For nearly a year, and the biodiversity after 10 years has not recovered to what it was before they started the work. Now your route, same as when we were discussing housing with Leaving weren't required. Leaving didn't know where the cables were. You haven't shown them. Your route goes across those cables. And if you go anywhere near them, apart from the fact that they've got a 25-metre wide whaling, which doesn't show on there, you will vaporize any worker that's actually in it.
So we are well aware of that. Of those.
You show the main things on there.
Okay, thank you for that comment. So what I was
quite ask his last question. His last
question
was why.
With due respect, he's trying to answer the previous question. Why through the Wirral? The lady asked. So that's what I want to know. Why the Wirral went?
Yeah. So
30 metres, I'm sure there's more than one 30 metre wide thing that you can get off the coast between Morecambe and here, not just to Wirral.
So actually, on exactly that point, yeah, there are actually very, very few places, you know, we did a search the whole way from kind of North Wales to Cumbria. There are very few places actually where you can take a pipeline offshore because of existing development, because of the geography and so on. But then where you have got those, where you could do it, then you also need to be able to get a pipeline route that goes to it. And one of the big constraints, because you know everyone looks at the map and goes, well, why don't you kind of go north-westwards? The big constraint is effectively between Liverpool and Manchester. It is totally developed. It is really not feasible to get to.
Why not eat?
Yeah, no, that's sorry. I'm just trying to answer the question. Very fair question. Overall, yeah, pipeline routing to go east, A, is much longer, and also B, because of the national park, which is clearly an area also trying to minimise impact, the Peak District National Park, I should say, is also quite a significant barrier to going east. But again, we did consider options for going east. I've lost track of who had their hand up next.
Me, I think, yeah. I think. I was going to ask, I did some very basic research on the internet last week and discovered, well, I asked the question, are there any alternatives to the way lime and cement has been traditionally made? And it was only on AI, so you can take it or leave it, but it came back with 5 or 6 environmentally friendly methods of creating lime and cement. And I'd like to ask you the question, did you look at these? I can't remember, it's so complicated, very complex, but they obviously exist. Have you looked at these methods rather than build this pipeline?
Yeah, so there are no other methods at proven scale and proven for the construction of buildings and bridges and all that big stuff that has been proven at scale. So the reality is, whilst those things maybe in 20 or 30 years' time may be feasible and they may be proven out, they're not available today. And we have a problem today, right? We're producing cement and lime with emissions to the atmosphere today, so therefore we need to get on and deal with the challenge that we have today. What I would also say, and I'm not an expert on some of those technical alternatives, is none of them come for free. They all have alternative challenges with availability of raw materials or the energy used in making those.
Are they likely to be cheaper than what you're doing though?
The reality is, keeping manufacturing and doing it in a way that doesn't impact our environment, there isn't a silver bullet for that. Right? Dealing with the climate challenge that we've got, there isn't a silver bullet to that. We have to do things that are going to address those. I think this gentleman was next. Yeah.
There's been a lot of discussion about the routing and the fact that this appears to be the only really viable available route. There is probably a reason for that which you may not be aware of, in that at the base of the Wirral there is a nuclear reprocessing plant called Capenhurst. Historically, when they were doing quote-unquote hot stuff, the nuclear waste went up on a pipeline going through the route that you're proposing into an offshore outlet off of Dove Point, I believe, in Mells, which is about 3/4 of a mile away down there. But I believe that I'm no expert, believe that pipeline runs up through that corridor. So that might be a significant issue. I had a word with Jim. And,
please do put that, comment in. It's the first time I've heard that one, I have to say.
That is why, to some extent, I think that area has been left. Okay. I believe they had to move the siting of the electricity cable coming down from Scotland because of this.
Okay, that's new, but please do.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me just use that as an opportunity to say to everyone, please